Well, like many YouTubers out here, many of us are kind of frustrated with YouTube to start with. And it's just, it's basically becoming an entertainment conglomerate, just like any other major media out there. And YouTube is turning into that, unfortunately. Predictably, I might add. Some of us are still on here because we do like to discuss controversial topics, and that seems to be the new taboo on YouTube. So I'm going to continue as long as I don't get tired of it, or until YouTube, throws me off. It's a general trend, the trend towards non-discussion and just avoiding certain issues. So since I did this video recently about it was a debate between a libertarian, Nick 1227 or something, and it kind of ties in with that, but it's not a direct response to his video or anything else. It does concern healthcare, and it does concern a controversial issue. I don't know why it is, basically, but it should be brought up to the attention of a broader public, I believe. So this issue concerns assisted suicide, okay? Not only that, but it also addresses the issue of end-of-life care, okay? So regardless of, whether you believe in some higher entity, whether you're a believer in God, whether you're an atheist, whatever, none of that matters, really. What matters is that you need to be able to make your will known to others once you get into a bad situation. And you need to make that known beforehand, okay? So, in my view, in America, in a highly industrialized society, end-of-life care, all this effort, saving very old and sick people, possibly against their own will, I might add, makes no sense. So I would kind of be in favor of some sort of a mandate. Yeah, and I'm calling it a mandate for everyone to reassess their own situation in terms of what they want, towards the end of their life, to make their position clear, as long as they are still of clear mind and not too confused. I think those kinds of things should be written down, and they should be safeguarded, and they should be followed, okay? There is a lot of idiocy going on in terms of saving people when they themselves don't want to be saved, okay? They don't want all these measures. But unfortunately, they didn't write anything down, and so the hospital has to, by law, has to provide you with all care necessary, unless you specifically state beforehand that you don't want all measures necessary to prolong your life. You don't want to be intubated, you don't want to be artificially fed, and so on. Okay, and this can be your own decision before anything happens. So I think everybody should be required to put their wishes down maybe every 3 or 4 years or so, especially once you get older. It may not be that important for younger people because, on average, it probably does not affect them that much. But, what if you were 30 years old and you got involved in some terrible car accident? okay? And you didn't want to be, if the prognosis was so bad, you didn't want to be artificially be kept alive. Maybe it would be a good idea for you to think about it too, you know, just in case. You know, and in terms of assisted suicide, we're not talking about eugenics here. We're talking about somebody that doesn't want to live anymore. Okay, so if you don't want to live, okay, and if you're determined to die, why should you be forced to stay alive artificially? I mean, it makes no sense. This is not forcing that decision on anyone. Now, if you don't believe in taking your own life, you're not being forced into it, you know. But people who want to end their life, I think it should be a choice for them, you know. A well-considered choice, I might add. It shouldn't be made on a whim, you know, because, you know, you've had something tragic happen in your life, and it's so overwhelming that you can't deal with it. No, it needs to be a well-considered decision, you know. And people who don't believe in that, it's fine. They're not being forced into it, you know. But those of us who do believe, when it comes time to go, that you know, we want to have some sort of a dignified death, I think it should be a choice. And there are nuances, you know, there are nuances in this because depending on what kind of depression or whatever depressive state that you're in, how this was caused, whether it could be helped, and so on. You know, in the case of, let's say, PTSD, you know, post-traumatic stress, all these soldiers committing suicide after their missions, and which is, by the way, higher than the actual combat deaths. You know, there might be some leeway there. Things with it's dicey. You'd have to work things out, you know, and it would have to be decided on a completely individual basis. Sorry, my timer went off for my rice. I have to go in a minute, but nobody. All I'm saying is nobody should be kept alive against their will, because they're going to find one way or the other, you know, to either kill themselves or to just suffer for no reason, you know, for no reason. So that's kind of my take on that whole end of life suicide debate. And nobody should be forced into it, of course. But you should have an option. That's all. There was a great documentary a while back on Frontline, when Frontline on PBS actually did some honest, you know, examination of issues. That's all in the past. It was called The Suicide Tourist. The Suicide Tourist. It's a very frank examination of that whole issue. I would recommend it if you watch it, if you have Netflix. I think it's streaming. It's on streaming thing, so you don't have to get the DVD. I would recommend seeing it, you know, because many people think that this is, you know, a completely crazy idea, but I don't think it's crazy. So, I'm saying this while, you know, I have negative thoughts every once in a while. I don't consider myself to be depressed or anything. I'm basically a realist, you know, and that's how I come to this subject matter to start with. So, all right. I'll see you later and look forward to your commentary.